This is the Austrian Audio Composer. This is one of the latest headphone from Austrian Audio, and it's also their most expensive headphone. And I just want to share with you my thoughts of this. How do I find it, and is it worth purchasing? I'm Richard and welcome to ZACP Productions. This is the review of the Austrian Audio Composer. Now, if you follow me on Headfi, I would have already completed my review. You can actually find it in the link in my description below. Take a look there and you can read whatever I'm saying today, but in a, I guess, easier form if you want to ask me. Now, before I start, to say that this is provided me by JABEN. They are the retailer and the local distributor for Austrian Audio in Singapore. And they were kind enough to loan me for a whole week. I managed to listen to it across quite a bit of amplifiers and setups, and I just want to share with you my thoughts today. Now, this is the Austrian Audio Composer. This is not a cheap headphone. It costs about 2,500 USD, or is it 2,400 USD? I'll put the picture somewhere here. And in Singapore, it's about 3,000 plus Sing dollars. Now, this put it in the territory of high-end, but not exactly close to flagship price yet. Because a lot of the flagships today are in the 5,000-6,000 Sing dollars region, or about 4,000 USD. So you can say that this is slightly cheaper than current high-end flagships. But you know, this is the flagship of Austrian Audio, and we should review it as such. Now, I'm going to first start off with the build quality of this headphone, and I think that this build quality is beautiful. Firstly, you can see I've been playing around with it. This is a really light headphone, below 400 grams, and it uses two dynamic drivers with really nice, foam pads. You can see it is really very plush and really thick too. They have clear indication of left and right, and then you can see this is the band, and this is the headrest that you can actually put on top of your head. Now, to adjust this, you can adjust it here, press it down, and then push up and down as such. It's quite easy to use. Now, the swivel is back and front, and then limited up and down. But for me, I find there's no issue. I do get it on my head really comfortably. Now, when it comes to the cables themselves, the cables used from Austrian Audio is relatively interesting. It's actually banana plugs. Let me pull out one and show you. You can see here, this is banana plugs, and it goes into the left and right side of the headphone, so you just have to push it in as such. Now, this is a bit unique of a configuration, so maybe aftermarket cables will not come so early, I guess. But you know, the good thing is Austrian Audio provides you every single cable that you can think of: 4.4, 3.5, and XLR. So you never need to worry about cables at all. So when they provide you the 3.5 cable, they also provided you with a screw-on 6.35mm or quarter-inch plug, so you can easily plug into your amplifiers as such. Now, this version of the cable is really long. Let me show you. The 3.5mm cables is really long, while the 4.4, I remember, is quite short. So that is how Austrian Audio is intending to show you in terms of cables and what they give. And the cables are pretty nice. I mean, it's quite soft, quite easy to use. Overall, I think that the comfort level of the Composer is one of the best. One of the best. I mean, the comfort level is really top notch here. I really like this. It's really light, easy to wear, easy to adjust, very plush. I mean, if you come from comfort, no complaints. And even if you come from quality, look at the quality of it: metal, nice leather, and maybe a bit plastic here, but if not, generally metal and fabric. It is also a very nice built headphones, and the mesh here is all really nicely done. This is as premium as it gets for a headphone itself. I think this is one of the nicest to wear, nicest to hold, and one of the nicest to look too. It is pretty good. I mean, unless you love the wood aesthetics of ZMFs, this is great. I mean, I prefer this over the focals. Now, with that said, you know, this is of course build and comfort. The question really is, how does it sound? And the way to describe it on how does it sound is that I would take something very popular like the HD800S. Now, I don't have one now, but I do remember how it kind of sounds like. This is like a slightly more forward version, a little bit less bright than the HD800S, but still has this nice wide soundstage and a little bit more powerful in the midst, with a decent amount of bass. I mean, not the highest, but for open backs, pretty good. Now, if I was to compare to the other popular headphones such as the Atrium Open, which I do have it down here, I don't think you can see, it's somewhere here. The Atrium Open. Now, for that headphone, I think that headphone is warmer. This is a bit more neutral with a slight tinge of brightness. This does have just a touch more sibilance than the Atrium Open. And that being said, it does have more clarity. I feel a little bit less smooth. The Atrium Open like ultra smooth. Soundstage wise, equally wide, but this one has a little bit more focus in the mids, while the Atrium is a little bit more large and dispersed. And the bass wise, very similar in terms of quantity, but the rendering, this one is a bit, I guess, impact wise a bit more, but that one feels a bit more sub bass and a bit more feels to the general sound. This is the description I have compared against two other relatively well-known dynamic headphones. And you can see that for flagship quality, it is pretty up there. I mean, I have used tons and I have used a lot of flagship headphones, right? I'll say this is quite up there. I mean, if you spend 2,400 or 2,500 USD for this headphone, you won't regret it if you're comparing to other flagships, as long as you can power it properly. Now, powering, I'll talk a little bit on the amplification section at the back, but this headphone wise sounds great. So now let's talk about sound quality part by part. First, this is a relatively balanced headphone when it comes to general frequency response, at least when hearing it. And if it comes to the tone itself, I would say this is a bit of neutral bright, where generally neutral itself with a slight tinge of brightness when it comes to certain frequencies, and it does give that little bit more sibilance, a little bit more bite, a little bit more clarity into the higher treble regions. But it's just a little bit, so I don't really want to say that it is a bright and not a balanced headphone. It is relatively balanced to me. Neutral with a slight tinge of bright is probably how I would describe the Composer itself. And then when it comes to clarity and details, I think this is as clear as it gets. It's one of the clearest headphones that I've heard. But it never overemphasized the treble, you know, compared to like, I cannot think of a headphone, maybe Moondrop Para, where the treble is a little more spicy and hot. It does emphasize the clarity more, but this one is like natural clear. When you swap to any other headphones, you won't feel that there is a loss in clarity. You won't feel that this is muddier than any other headphones. It's really, really clear. It makes other headphones a little bit less clear, if you ask me, when you swap between them. So this is really, really nice. It is not an over-analytical headphone, no. Do not think that that's the case. It just is a little more clear, a little bit more detailed if you actually focus on that. Very enjoyable signature, relatively different from what I have from the Atrium Open itself. Now, when it comes to soundstage, I would say as it is a bit more focused with a large spread of sound. What I mean is that imagine this is the focus of the sound and then it spreads all around it. This is pretty much how it feels like for this headphone itself. There is very little depth. You don't feel like things are in front of you. You feel like it's a halo around you. So imagine your head is like a soundstage that goes around you. Very interesting. It doesn't have that much forward back depth, but a halo that goes around. And it is, the halo does have a bit of height. So at least you can feel like it's around you and it's pretty nice. It's not in your head at least. So it's pretty good. I hear tracks like Ultima and Wish for Mercury, and this sound do go all around you, but never quite in front. So that is pretty much how I feel about it. And if you were to play Ado's Ibarra song on this headphone, it feels like the song is in the forehead, you know, instead of front of the face. Quite an interesting experience if you ask me. Now, when it comes to the positioning and separation, I would say separation on this headphone is really good because it has a lot of details. It is just a touch bright, which increases certain amount of details and edges of the instruments. Its separation is very good. You know, even when I hear One Wing Angel at the end, where there was a chant, there was drums, there was instruments all together, you can still separate all of them and listen to it if you want to. Some headphones, such as when I was trying Verite Open, I think is okay, but when I was trying something like the Bokeh Close, some details do get totally lost, and when you hear this, it's like day and night between this and the Bokeh Close. Quite an interesting experience for the One Wing Angel when it comes to separation. But when it comes to positioning, it's a bit more limited. Because, you know, the positioning tends to be all around your head like a halo. it doesn't have that many positions to go around. At least it's not like 5 positions. It still moves around, but it's just a bit limited, a bit close up to your head. At least it's not like the CA1, which is just one big bubble that is still positioned all around you, just not the greatest positioning and not very pinpoint to me. I'll rate the positioning for this at least a little bit more average compared to separation, which I think was really good. Now, when it comes to the bass, this, as I said, is a bit more balanced. So the bass is there and it is noticeable, it is fast, it is punchy, but definitely not the most in quantity. If you want a lot of quantity from this headphone, you have to on it relatively loud. But it's very clean and punchy, which is very nice. There is good amount of texture, and when you hear songs like Ultima and Backlight, you can hear the bass punching. And Ultima especially, there are certain areas where there are like rippling bass notes from, I think, some sort of wind instrument. It is really nice here, you can hear it, just not in very large quantity. So if you are a bass head, this is not the headphone for you. And now, when it comes to the mids region, I think the mids are a little bit on the lighter side, but realistic. So when you hear this and hear something like the Atrium feels a little bit more colored. This is like a bit more realistic sounding, which is pretty nice. And the I'll say as the mix itself is relatively open, so if you listen to vocals on this, it feels like it's spread out and open. There is not much restraint to the voice itself. When you are listening to instruments like, Shadow Me, there is a bit of brightness which gives the vocals stand out, but it also helps enhance the energy in the things like the violin, the guitars that are all in the song itself. It does have the electrical feeling to it, bit of energy there. As I said, clarity and separation is quite good on this headphone, and it helps especially in a song like Shadow Me. We have tons and tons of mids, and realistically it is well rendered throughout the entire song, and I really like the mids on this with a bit more energy. Now the vocals, it has good extension into the upper mids and into the lower trebles. There's quite a bit of air there, but there is a touch of sibilance on this headphone itself, so that's something to note. Plenty of clarity in energy for the mids for this particular headphone here. Now, when it comes to the treble, it has a little bit more treble energy. As I said, neutral with a tinge of brightness, so it does give very nice edges to the instruments, especially for especially for string instruments, not wind instruments. String instruments, if you actually see how it works, the higher treble energy do help get nice edges on those instruments itself. It gives that punch, that edge of the instrument, and you can hear it quite well, quite clear, but it is not overdone. So that's why it's just a tiny bit more treble. Not sure how much, but it's just that tiny bit. Now, when it comes to actual instruments that lie in the treble region, cymbals, when they crash down, is very nice, very well managed, never too chaotic, and high-pitched bells in certain songs, such as Suzume, is very clean and very clear on this particular headphone, and the decay, which is all in the higher frequencies, are very nice and smooth. Really nice, and the roll-off is really good. So even though, as I said, slightly bright, there's some sibilance here, it is not too harsh or any way, it's still relatively smooth and enjoyable in most tracks. And definitely, this additional slight touch of brightness gives that extra bite to the instruments, which is very nice, makes things a bit more lively and enjoyable. That being said, this does lie on the edge of my tolerance for treble energy. And if there was just a little bit more of this, I pretty much can't take it. But I'm pretty sure that my tolerance is pretty low for treble, because when I talk to my friends that their preference of IEMs especially, they do like IEMs that have significantly more treble energy, which to me wasn't that great, very sibilant to me and very hot to me, while this one is kind of just nice for me. If I was to look at it as a whole from across all the audio files that I know of, this is probably one of the middle tier kind of treble energy, not extremely high, even though I put it this way in this video. Pretty much this is the sound quality, and so far I'll tell you that this sound quality belongs to kind of the high-end headphones. Very clear, very good separation, nice sound stage, nice mids, good amount of treble energy and relatively good and punchy bass. Now the bass, of course, the quantity not too much, not for bass heads. And if you like a lot of treble energy, also the treble energy is not the highest, but it does have a little bit of this additional brightness which gives nice edges and stuff. Overall, I think the sound quality on this headphone really belongs to the high end, and you can actually modify it with certain amount of amplification or type of amplification that will change some of these characteristics, which I want to go through in my final chapter of amplification before I actually close out this particular review. Now, when it comes to amplification, I don't listen to it very loud, but this headphone here is very easy to drive. I mean, 22 ohms of impedance and sensitivity of 112 dB. It is so sensitive that I cannot run it off my MKH from Macintosh. This is a tube amp. You can see at this corner here. I cannot run it directly into the amp because it will just be too loud in too low of a volume knob, which cause some rippling issue into the amp itself. I have to use a preamp to actually utilize this headphone on the MKH200. That is how sensitive this headphone is. I have never seen a headphone that required that requirement, you know, while plugging in the MKH200. That is how sensitive this particular headphone is, even though it's an open back and stuff, and considered to be high-end. You know, high-end headphones tend to be less sensitive as they go higher. I don't know why. But overall, I would say as this headphone do sound very good, and it does portray also the amplification's signature. So if you plug into something like the Mesh Kobo, which I don't have it on the table now, it does lose some energy in the mids, but they'll give a very nice wide sound, very solid state still, and very clear, very precise. But the sibilance is a bit too high at that point of time. As I said, this is on the edge of my tolerance for the treble and the sibilance, so I don't like it with the Mesh Kobo that much. I do think that the soundstage is really nice, and the rendition of vocals are really nice. The bass is really, really punchy, but you know, not my cup of tea. Now, when I try it with the Woo Audio Mini Tube, which I do have it here, let me check it out. Now, this guy here is, I would say, as a wonder to plug into laptops. It's a tube, so it has a little bit of thickness to the sound, but it does maintain a very nice airy feel. It does give this headphone a little bit more body, but the airiness is good, though not as much as the Mesh Kobo. I do think that it's quite different and an interesting flavor to the Composer itself, and surprisingly the Composer can run on this without much issue at all. The next amp that I tried with this headphone is the Emblem here. Now the Emblem has two separate output, voltage and current here. The voltage being the very usual amplification that you always have in most amps, and then the current is something special that changes the way the amps sound depending on their impedance itself. And for the voltage, I would say it's a very nice halfway mark between the Woo Audio and something like the Mesh Kobo. So you get good amount of air, good amount of thickness, good amount of body. It's a middle point. Pretty much enjoyable. Just a touch of sibilance there, but pretty much okay. I use it quite often for this particular review. Now the current mode is a bit different. It changes the Composer sound. It gives it more energy, more bass. The bass hits harder, and literally reduces the sibilance to almost non-existence to me. At least sibilance really. Now the bass really becomes very tight and punchy with this, but I do feel like it kinda lower the overall highs and trebles available. You sacrifice some of this top frequency, it becomes a bit more rounded at the top, and it changes the sound stage, makes things a bit more dispersed, don't have the focus feel anymore. So it does change the sound quite significantly. Luckily, it does still retain the bigness of the sound. You know, it's still very big, very energetic, very fun, but just that it loses some of this high treble energy, a bit more rounded on the top, and well, it disperses the sound just a little bit. So I mean, you may or may not like this signature, so something to try out yourself if you really want to buy it. And the last thing actually I tried, I didn't write it in my written review, I actually tried it and I'm going to keep it special for this version, is that I tried it with the MKH200. If I have a picture here, let me show you. Now with the MKH200 and the live harmony deck, so it's an R2R deck. Of course I use a preamp which is the Ferrum All, because as I said, if I plug this headphone into the MKH200, it doesn't work, a lot of rippling sound goes crazy. But once I have a preamp in between, it is beautiful. It is the biggest sound you get, and it reduces the sibilance. It gives it more body. The bass is still punchy, but the sound is absolutely huge and very smooth sounding. You do give, I would say, as a little bit of that brightness away. It becomes a little bit more just pure neutral sound, which is great to me at least. And sibilance gets reduced a little bit more. Highs get reduced a little bit later. Not a little bit later, just a little bit. I mean, it is not as crazy as the HPA 23RM from Enlem. That one totally reduces the highs quite significantly. This one still maintains most of it and makes the soundstage fantastically big. I really like this combination. Magical combination for me. I just discovered it very recently. So with amplification, I think my most favorite, of course, is what I said just now, MKH 200 live harmony with a Ferrum ore as a preamp. That is an ultra expensive stack. But with this headphone, it brings it all the way to flagship level, which I think is something you should maybe try out yourself one day. Overall, I really like this headphone and I do enjoy it, and this is a good alternative to something like the HD800S or even the Atrium if you are looking for something a little more brighter in nature. I cannot remember exactly the Focal Utopia. I think this is more similar to the Focal Utopia also. I think the Focal Utopia is a bit brighter to me. I think so. You know, it's a bit more treble energy there than this one. It's been some time since I tried the Focal Utopia. I mean, a few months at least. So that is something, you know. Overall, I think that this is a very, very nice headphone. Very nice build, very nice comfort. Absolutely great sound, and you can use different amps to tame certain of the frequencies. Change the sound of the headphones a little bit to get what you really like. And if you ask me, is it worth purchasing it at 2.4, 2.5k USD? I say yes, because it does provide you very flagship-like qualities. Of course, it's not the most easiest to pick up sound. I think the Atrium Open is the easiest to pick up sound, but it's definitely up there when it comes to sound quality and in various aspects. I think the only bad thing about this headphone is really the positioning itself, which is not the greatest, but I think that's something that, you know, you can give way to. And with that, I'd like to end my review. Once again, I'd like to thank JABEN Singapore for loaning me this particular copy here. I'm going to return it really, really soon. But thanks to them, I can bring it home, try it out, and bring you this particular review. Do visit their store at Adelphi in level 1. But, you know, really thanks to them on this, and I enjoy this review a lot. I enjoy this headphone, and I really want to share with you my findings for it. And I hope you enjoyed this review too. I mean, I think it turned out to be a bit longer than expected, but I think I covered everything about this headphone, and I just want to say that it is something that you should try out. This composer here is really brilliant work from Austrian Audio. Their first trial into high-end market, but it is a very good one, a very, very good attempt, and something that to some people, this may be the flagship itself. And that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this short little or mid-long review of the Austrian Audio composer. And I will see you guys again. Bye-bye.